When you think of a samurai, you probably picture him fighting someone, armor on, sword out, maybe another samurai standing across from him doing the exact same thing. Which makes sense, fighting is kind of what they're famous for. But here's the thing, wars don't happen every day, and after Japan was unified under the Tokugawa shogunate in the early 1600s, the country entered a long period of relative peace that lasted for more than 2 centuries. The samurai didn't disappear though. They still carried swords, served their lords, and were officially the warrior class. They just had way fewer people to fight. So, what did they do all day? Well, they went to work. Yep. Samurai had jobs. Most samurai served a lord called a daimyo, and just because there wasn't a war going on, didn't mean the daimyo was going to keep paying thousands of guys to sit around and look cool with swords. They had to be useful, and during peacetime, that often meant helping run things. Some samurai became administrators, keeping records, dealing with finances, supervising land, handling disputes, and taking care of government business. Basically, imagine showing up to the office with 2 swords on your waist and then spending the next few hours doing paperwork. That was a real possibility. But they were still warriors and expected to stay ready, so training remained a normal part of life. Swordsmanship was obviously a big one, but samurai also trained with bows, spears, horses, and eventually firearms. And here's where being a samurai starts looking even less like the version we usually see in movies. They studied too. As Japan became more peaceful, knowing how to fight wasn't enough anymore. Samurai were expected to read and write, and many studied things like Confucian philosophy, calligraphy, and poetry. So yeah, you could spend the morning practicing how to kill someone with a sword and the afternoon practicing your handwriting. Apparently both mattered. Once all of that was done, they had free time just like everyone else. They visited friends, drank sake, read, wrote poetry, practiced tea ceremony, watched no performances, played games, or spent time with their families. Samurai weren't walking weapons. They had wives, children, friends, hobbies, and bills, especially bills. Because being a samurai didn't automatically mean you were rich. High-ranking samurai could live very comfortably, but plenty of lower-ranking samurai struggled financially. Many were paid through stipends tied to rice, while everyday life increasingly ran on money, leaving some in the slightly awkward position of having high social status, 2 swords, and not nearly enough cash. Some even went into debt, which is probably not the samurai lifestyle most movies show you. There were also days when your lord could make your schedule a lot more annoying. Under the Tokugawa system, daimyo were required to spend certain periods in Edo, and they brought huge groups of retainers with them, so if your lord was heading to Edo, congratulations. You might be going too. These journeys could take days or weeks, with enormous processions moving along Japan's roads. But on a normal, peaceful day, being a samurai could actually be surprisingly ordinary. You'd wake up, eat, take care of whatever duty you'd been assigned, maybe deal with some paperwork, train, study, see friends or family, have dinner, and eventually go to sleep. You'd also maintain your equipment and make sure you still looked like someone people shouldn't mess with. But actually pulling that sword out and fighting someone? Most days, no. And the longer Japan stayed peaceful, the stranger the whole situation became. Samurai were still warriors by identity and social status, but generation after generation grew up in a country where actual warfare had become increasingly rare. So eventually, a lot of samurai were doing something kind of ironic. They dressed and trained like warriors, carried weapons everywhere, and then went to work. Because when there was no war, being a samurai wasn't really about fighting all day. Most of the time, it was just their life.